What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. These days just blend together. It is a really nice day in New Jersey today, in the 70s, sunny. Means people are scared of me when I walk the pit bull in my bald head and tattooed body, even though I'm a giant teddy bear. Joining me as always... Joining me, as always, Slim Cliffy. How was your weekend?
Good weekend. Beautiful day here today as well. When I went for my run, it was plus 13, which I think is like 55 to 60 in Fahrenheit. Mm-hmm. Beautiful day. So yeah, we'll take it. Good weekend. I'm a big wrestling fan, so WrestleMania was this past weekend. We're not going to talk about it. I really don't want to talk about it right now because I don't feel like getting that upset. Good weekend. I went to go see the new Dungeons and Dragons movie last night. I had the choice between playing that 3-game slate or going to a movie. It's a pretty easy choice. It was actually fun. It was a good movie. Like, it's not like an Oscar winner, but if you have, you have a young kid at home, like this would be a movie. If I were to sit down with, my nephew's a little bit older now, but a few years ago when he was like 9-10 years old, I would have absolutely brought him to that movie. It was kind of funny. Like it's like a live action Pixar movie almost, in that it's got a lot of adult humor, but it's kind of meant for kids. So I enjoyed the movie. You went to go see a favorite of ours over the weekend as well.
Yeah, I went to go see John Wick 4. Excellent movie. Don't want to ruin it for people who haven't seen it yet, but easily the best one since the first one. The director should win some type of award. Directing that movie had to be insanely difficult.
There's a good behind the scenes thing that they did. I think it's on, you can just find it on YouTube. I forget who did it. It might have been Vanity Fair or something like that. They did it behind the scenes of some of the action sequences, and it's pretty outstanding. So yeah, John Wick 4, absolutely. And somebody asked about it in the Discord earlier today. I would say that's a movie I would go see in theaters. That's not a movie, even if you have a nice like 70-inch TV at home or something, it's a movie you want to see in theaters.
Yeah, without spoiling anything, Bill Skarsgård, unbelievable in that movie. I always forget his name, but he was Kenji. He was in Rush Hour 3. He was in The Last Samurai. The guy who owned the Osaka.
Oh, Hiroyuki Sanada.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite actors. So yeah, really enjoyed. Like each like the first half of the movie was crazy, but the second half of the movie was just ridiculous. So some of those scenes, like I don't even know how they filmed. Go see it. Well, maybe we have to do movie critic.
We can't do it. We can't do it justice talking about here. It's something that has to be experienced for sure.
Yeah, it was an awesome movie. I'd say maybe arguably better than the first one, but the first one really set the table for everything. So
see, that's kind of the thing. It's like there are movies where I think you can argue the sequel outdoes the original. I think The Godfather 2 would certainly be one of those. But you have to be so much better than the original because it does set the template. And like the original is different from the other three, right? Like the original is just kind of a revenge. It's like a sleek revenge movie. That's all it is, really. It's not until the second one that the world building really starts. So like I consider the first one almost separate from the other three, but it just goes to show, like, this thing's already, they've already made $250 million on John Wick 4, and it's only been out like a week and a half. It just goes to show that if you make good movies, that will go. And people want to see good action movies. They don't want to see people dancing in front of a green screen like every Marvel movie is these days. They want to see actual good action scenes in an actual action movie. And when you do it, people will flock to it, and you can make a ton of money doing it. Hopefully Hollywood kind of picks up what John Wick and the producers and the choreographers and the directors are putting down here.
You know what it is? There's no CGI. It's all real. Like, all these actors are mixed martial arts performers and choreographers. John Wick or Keanu Reeves does all of his stunts. So like his Aikido is just ridiculous. It's not a martial art that like should work in real life, but it works for John Wick. So
like, yeah, if you watch the behind the scenes thing, they're hitting people with cars. Like in the car sequence at the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, they're running people over with cars. That, like, it's not a CGI car. And I'm not saying you have to go that far all the time, but a little bit more realism in the movies when you're doing an action sequence like that goes a long way.
Yeah, it was a great movie. We could talk about this movie for the whole hour, but 11 game slate. The GPPs aren't great, but they're better than they were the past few weeks. So NHL winding down ends next Friday, the regular season. I'm sure the first round of the playoffs, the GPPs will be great. And then after that, it kind of dies down into showdowns. But, you know, while we're here, we'll break down the 11 game slate. Before we do, make sure to give us a like and subscribe as you're coming in. It helps us out a lot. Also, don't forget to sign up for the Stokastic Hall of Fame by changing your avatar on DraftKings and FanDuel by going to stokastic.com/avatar. Place in the top 3 of contests with over 5K contestants. There's plenty in MLB now, not any outside of like the quarter arcade or dime time in NHL. If that does happen, tweet the win to @StokasticHOF account on Twitter, or if you don't have a Twitter, you can email us with your screenshot, and you'll win a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. You also get a shout out on our weekly Hall of Fame segment. So I would do that. It's $120 value. You can win once a year. But yeah, $120 get for free. That gets you access to every tool on our site. Also, we are sponsored by Bet365. Shout out to them. We will have a nice deal for you a little bit later in the show. But let's get into this 11 game slate, shall we? As my lineup builder is giving me the slow death, but I know the first game is the Ottawa Senators with a 2.4 total heading into Carolina. The Hurricanes have a 3.6 total. Levi Merilainen is confirmed for Ottawa. Frederik Andersen is probable for Carolina. I'm sorry, Levi Merilainen confirmed for Ottawa. No idea who that is. He's obviously like their 9th string goalie. He's 6,900 on DraftKings. This is just a brutal matchup. Ottawa has a 2.4 total. Ottawa mixed up their lines. They're going with Brady Tkachuk, Stim Stützle, and Drake Batherson. Brady Tkachuk left morning skate, though, so he's a game-time decision as it is. This is a tough matchup regardless for Ottawa. I don't like really stacking teams going into Carolina. This is more of a Carolina game for me. There is lots of question marks on Ottawa, especially if Brady's out. We have this goalie I've never heard of. It's just a question of, you know, if you want to play Aho, Netchus, Martinuk on a 11-game slate, you play Kotkaniemi, Nason, Puljujärvi, or Stahl, Drury. Like it would be the Aho line. It's just a question of like how you want to build, because they are 15-8, which is a decent filler, and they have a pretty good total on the slate.
Yeah, and I think one of the things worth pointing out with Carolina is since these injuries hit and they got Puljujärvi back in the lineup, they've been doing what they were doing with Aho earlier in the season. Pardon me. And that's using him against the bottom 6 when they're at home. Like Aho's not going to face off that much against Stützle or DeBrincat or anything like that here tonight. He's going to see a lot of the Ottawa bottom 6. And then the Stahl line and the Kotkaniemi line are going to take the top 2 lines in kind of defensive shutdown matchups. Now, part of that is this team doesn't have a lot of scoring with Svechnikov and Pacioretty out of the lineup, and they need to get Aho and Necas in the best matchups possible. You can't use them in a shutdown role because there's no one else in the rest of the lineup that can score. So it makes sense that they do that with Aho. But I was looking at Ottawa's depth numbers. The bottom 6 hasn't been that bad defensively, at least over like the last 6 weeks. Like I went back to basically the end of February, which would have been when all the trades were happening around the trade deadline. And Ottawa's bottom 6 in general has about the same defensive metrics as their top line. So I'm not sure, at least from the Carolina perspective, whether the matchup for Aho matters a whole lot here tonight. But it is worth noting that he should not see much of the Ottawa top 6. So I'm with you. I do like that Carolina top line. They're at 5 to 6% ownership. I think that's just fine in this particular matchup. They're still generating, even with Martinook on the line, 2.5 expected goals for per 60 minutes. That's not great. Usually Aho lines, especially with Natchez there, are generally above 3. And they're not skating a ton either. Like that top line is anywhere from like 16 to 18 minutes over the last 4 or 5 games, like on average. So, I think you're fine playing Carolina 1, but I'm going to be honest. I'm not like running out to play them. You know what I mean? And that Maryline kid, he wasn't supposed to be a big prospect, which is why he was a 3rd-round pick. But he had a pretty good year this year I think it was over in Finland he was playing. Just came back to North America. That's why it's his first game in the NHL. And he had a really good season over in Finland. I was looking at some prospect measurements. His potential upside because of the season he had this year took a big jump. He legitimately might be a decent goalie. So I think there's Carolina 1's fine, but I think there are reasons not to play them here tonight, despite it being a pretty good matchup, I think. I have no interest on the Ottawa side. It's just a terrible, terrible matchup. And I think there are enough low-owned lines elsewhere that you don't have to pick Ottawa going into Carolina to get a lot of positive leverage here tonight, especially with Carolina's penalty kill still being one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league. And that's where Ottawa really makes their hay from a fantasy perspective, is on the power play. Honestly, there's just not a lot I like stacking here. If anything, it would be the Carolina top line, but there's just not a lot I'm interested in stacking on either side.
Yeah, it feels like an MME type of deal. I mean, obviously that line can get there. It's just there's a lot of other spots that I like better, but at that ownership, I don't mind them, especially in 20 to 150 max. Buffalo Sabres with a 3.1 total heading into Florida. The Panthers have a 4 total. Devin Levy, probable. Alex Leone, confirmed. Looks like Tage Thompson is going to be back. Buffalo running Tage Thompson, Alex Tuch, Jeff Skinner, Dylan Cousins, Jack Quinn, JJ Peterka. Now, with Tage Thompson back, Casey Middlestad was on the top power play, but so is Jack Quinn in Cousins' spot. So I don't know if they leave Middlestad on the top power play unit or they kick Middlestad off and leave Quinn on. It's kind of important because I kind of like Buffalo on the road here. They're getting no ownership. Florida takes a ton of penalties. Alex Leone has played great, which is weird to say the past few games. He's really, I don't want to say saved their season because they put themselves in that spot, but he's stopped them from missing out on the playoffs. On the flip side, Florida has a 4 total. Devin Levi, probably already the best goalie in the Buffalo system. Whatever that means, but I do really like Florida here tonight. The other night, I think it was Saturday, someone asked me in chat, would you rather play the Barkov line or the Lundell line? And my answer was I generally just go to whatever line is the Tkachuk line on. I thought the Barkov line was fine. The Tkachuk line didn't do anything on Saturday. Carter Verhaeghe had 4 goals. Duclair had 4 assists. Barkov had a points bonus. So it's not as easy as an answer here now with Florida. Anton Lundell not even on any power play unit. E2 Luostarinen on the second power play unit, and Tkachuk is on the top unit. Now the top line, it's kind of the same deal. You only get one guy on the top power play unit with Barkov. So you're not really stacking for the power play, I guess. You could power play stack, but you're going across 3 even strength lines. So it's just a question of which even strength line do you want to play. Yeah,
I want to start on the Buffalo side here because they're not coming in with a whole lot of ownership. We just talked about Ottawa's top line not having much ownership tonight, and they don't. The projected ownership is 0.1%. I expect Ottawa 1 to be under 1%. The Buffalo top line is also coming in under 1% at 0.6%. So and they're only $200 more expensive. So they're basically the same price. So would you rather play Buffalo 1 going into Florida or Ottawa won going into Carolina. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I have no interest in Ottawa, because there are lines at the same prices in better spots at almost no ownership. And this is one of them. So it should be noted that Buffalo's top line was playing well offensively before Thompson got hurt, but they were only shooting 8%. And that's kind of the thing with a lot of lines, like we brought up before, like with Ottawa at times this season, with Pittsburgh. There are times at Dallas where these elite top lines go in a dry spell, sort of just because of shooting percentages. But I also want to point out, Tage Thompson only had 36 shots in 13 games in the month of March. That's like 2.7, 2.8 shots per game. That's not close to Tage Thompson levels. Now, he missed 3 games, so maybe he was playing through an injury during that time as the team was fighting for a playoff spot, and they just said, it's too much eventually, and they just gave him a week off. Maybe that's what it was. But it's worth noting that he had let up on his shooting quite a bit in March before he left the lineup. But there's no ownership on that line. The problem is they're going into that Barkov-Duclair line, and Barkov and Duclair, even going back to last year, are really, really good defensively. You add Carter Verhaeghe, and they're going to be a really, really good defensive line. Like, I was just looking at Barkov-Duclair this season, 1.7 expected goals against. It's just, they're sitting at 3.3 goals against because the Florida goaltending has let them down. And that would be a reason why I would play Buffalo. One of the reasons is the Florida goaltending really hasn't been great. Like, when you're relying on Alex Leon to keep your faint playoff hopes alive, you're really stretching for a miracle here. So I really do like Buffalo 1 here. It's not a great matchup against Barkov, but Florida takes a ton of penalties, 3.5 times shorthanded per game this season. Buffalo's above average by drawing power plays. All 3 guys are going to be on the top power play unit. Buffalo 1 is one of the expensive under-owned lines that I like here tonight. As far as the power play goes, before Thompson got hurt, Victor Olofsson was on the top power play unit. It wasn't Cousins or Quinn. Cousins had been moved off by that point. So they could just run the top line plus Olofsson, right? And then put Cousins, Quinn, and Peterka on the second power play unit. I think that would kind of make sense. And then when the power play's over, you can run out like that Krebs, Okposo, Gergenson's line or whatever, to counteract the opposing top line that'll be coming out after. So I think that's what's going to happen, is you're going to see Olsen on the top power play, but that's honestly, it's just a guess. And it could be Cousins, it could be Quinn, it could be Middlestat. So it is a bit up in the air, but I still like Buffalo 1 regardless. Consequently, I also like Florida 1. I think both Florida lines are certainly in play here. Florida 1 has been generating a lot with Duclair there. 3.6 expected goals, 4.6 actual goals. Verhaeghe has 20 shots in his last 5 games, and that's with, I think, 3, maybe 4 games off the power play. So he's still shooting a lot even without the power play. The Buffalo top line is pretty porous defensively, so it's a good matchup for Florida. I do like both top lines in this game. The Florida top line is a lot less expensive. It's like $3,000 less expensive, so they're not quite in the same price range. All things considered, I would rather play Buffalo, but I think both top lines are firmly in play here. I just want to mention Devin Levi because I know, it was just 1 game, and you can't read anything into 1 game for a goalie in the NHL, and you can't read a whole lot into even a full season of college hockey success, or 2 seasons even. But just every time I've watched him play, he is an impressive goalie. And what I write about season-long fantasy hockey. What I wrote about with regards to Devin Levi was my grand theory for goaltending is the elite goaltenders in the NHL just focus better. And it might seem simple, but being able to keep your focus, razor sharp focus for an entire NHL game in and game out, season in and season out, is not easy. It is very hard to do. And I think the elite goalies, the Connor Hellebucks, the UC Saros, those guys, the Ilya Sorokins, they just focus a lot better than most other goalies. That could be elite, like a Jacob Markstrom or a Thatcher Demko or something like that. And I think Devin Levi just whether it's watching him in college, watching him, with the national team, watching him in that one game, his focus is tremendous. And there was even he does meditation between whistles. Like there was a picture of him. He kneels in front of the net when they're scraping the ice to kind of meditate and clear his head to keep his focus. And I think that's incredibly impressive for a young goalie. All that to say, I think there is a reasonable chance that he's actually a really, really good goalie right now. And that's the one thing that concerns me from a Florida aspect.
Yeah, and Levi's min price on DraftKings because DraftKings stopped pricing goalies.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. I think Levi is in play tonight for sure. I also like Florida. I mean, the game has a 7 total, so there's going to be goals scored.
Yeah.
Detroit Red Wings with a 3.3 total heading into Montreal. The Canadiens have a 3.1 total. Another min price goalie, Caden Primo, is confirmed. Ville Husso also confirmed. Looks like Montreal's lines are a bit jumbled. Looks like Nick Suzuki with Jesse Ylonen and Sean Farrell. Brendan Gallagher with Jake Evans and Mike Hoffman. Joel Armia back in the lineup with Johnny Duran and Dennis Gurianov. Detroit running back Larkin, Perron, and Kubalik. Cop Raymond and Marco Casper.
Casper's out, I think.
Oh, Casper's out. Yeah, Top Stacks has him up there, but that is kind of irrelevant tonight. I think this game for me on the Detroit side is Detroit 1. They are around the same price as Carolina 1, and I think I would much prefer to play Detroit 1, even though they're on the road, than Carolina at home tonight. It's weird to say, but DFS is a weird game. So I do like Detroit 1 here. On the Montreal side, don't know if I'm full stacking, but there is some merit to one-offing some players, like a Brandon Gallagher, a Dennis Gurianov, a Sean Farrell, this and that. I don't know if I'm full stack, though.
Yeah, I'm not going to go in too much on Montreal. There's just not a lot I like here. Like there's just way too many injuries on this side. It wasn't a good team to begin with, and they're missing like 9 players out of the lineup or something like that. So, not a whole lot I like on the Montreal side. What I will say is that Jake Evans and Brendan Gallagher are at least about break even by expected goal share this year and are above average by expected goals for per 60 minutes. So being break even on this Montreal team is pretty impressive, and being above average by expected goals for is also pretty impressive. So if you want a 2-man like Evans and Gallagher, something like that, I think that would be the line I would look to, the Evans, Gallagher, Hoffman line. I think you can leave Hoffman off, but if you want to leave him on because he's on the power play, go right ahead. But it's the Hoffman, Gallagher, Evans line I would look to. I'd be more inclined to 2-man, something like Evans and Gallagher, Evans and Hoffman, something like that, rather than full stack. But that's pretty much it from a Montreal perspective. On the Detroit side, I agree with you. It's the Detroit top line. With Casper out, I think Pius Suter's going to get moved up. I don't think it really matters, honestly, whether it's Suter, whether it's Adam Ernie, whether it's Joe Veleno, it doesn't really matter. The Detroit top line, the Perron, Kubalik, Larkin line has been really good this season. They're up to 135 minutes, 3.3 expected goals for per 60, 6.2 actual goals for. Now they're shooting 15%. That's high. But even if they're shooting 10%, they're still scoring over 4 goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5 because they're generating so much. There's no matchup on the Montreal side to worry about, whether it's the Suzuki line, whether it's the Evans and Gallagher line. There's no league average defensive line or better on the Montreal side. Montreal is taking more penalties than the league average, and their penalty kill is absolutely atrocious. And our good buddy, Alex Chason, has really helped the Detroit top power play. With Chason on the top power play unit, they're up to 30 minutes now, which is still – it's a relatively small sample, but, that's 15 power plays or so, give or take. I mean, probably more than that because you don't play the full 2 minutes when you score, but 120 shot attempts, 72 shots, and 14 goals per 60 minutes. The goals are a bit high again, but again, if you knock off about a third of their shooting percentage, they're still scoring 9 to 10 goals per 60, which is pretty good for a Detroit power play, for most power plays, really. I really like Detroit 1 here. I agree with you. I'd way rather play them with Carolina, and they are one of my favorite middle price lines on the entire slate.
Yeah, I woke up a little bit earlier than I wanted this morning to a message from you saying about Alex Chiasson. I read it, chose to ignore it, and I rolled over back to sleep. I can't handle Alex Chiasson in DFS anymore, man. That guy, you full stack Edmonton power play last year. Alex Chiasson 3-point game, 8 minutes of ice time. It's just like he's just brutal for DFS.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I guess you could one off him if you're really feeling spicy. He's only 3,300.
I agree.
Pittsburgh, go ahead. Pittsburgh Penguins with a 3 total heading into New Jersey. The Lindy Ruffs have a 3.6 total. Tristan Jarry confirmed Vitek Vanacek is probable. Lindy Ruff up to Lindy Ruff things. New Jersey Devils going with Palat, Hughes, and Bratt. Heischer, Mercer, Tatar, and then Holla, Timo Meyer, Jesper Bachquist. Pittsburgh going with Crosby, Rutz, Gensel, Raquel, Zucker, Malkin. Now, there's almost no ownership on the Pittsburgh top line, 1.5%. The problem is they're going to get Heischer, Tatar, Mercer, and they've been very good defensively this year. I don't mind that second line. They create a whole bunch of stuff. Almost no ownership. I think if I was MMing, even in 20 max, having one pit 2 being way over the field, I think is fine. On the New Jersey side, I think it's probably Hughes and Bratt. Like, if Timo's not going to be with Nico Heischer, I'm going to go with whoever Bratt is playing with, and that is Jack Hughes. So that is my preferred line on the Devils.
Okay. I'll start on the Pittsburgh side. Like, no, but I was just trying to think of a reason to play Pittsburgh. The problem is it's just the exact same thing as the Ottawa problem, right? Is like they're in that price range with Buffalo. They're in the same ownership range as Buffalo, and I think Buffalo is just in a better matchup. So I'd rather go play Buffalo. Like that's the problem here. And the other problem is with Thomas Tatar back on that top line. Like, why they ever took Thomas Tatar off the top line, I don't know.
Oh, they're so good defensively with Thomas Tatar there.
The numbers with him and Hischer on the ice together are just absolutely absurd. But just even if you add Dawson Mercer on the other side, who's not particularly good defensively, the defensive numbers are still great. Tatar, Mercer, and Hischer have 215 minutes together at 5-on-5 this season. 4.3 expected goals for per 60, 2 against per 60 at 5-on-5. 3.6 actual goals, 2.2 actual goals against at 5-on-5. Like, they are just dominating. And whether it's goals scored or whether it's goals allowed, it doesn't matter. They're dominating the opposition. And that's the matchup Pittsburgh is going to run into. And I get, like, it's kind of the same as, running into that Barkov matchup for Buffalo. By the same token, New Jersey has a better penalty kill. I think New Jersey has a better goalie, et cetera, et cetera. I think there are reasons to play Buffalo. So, like, that's just kind of my problem with playing at least the Pittsburgh top line in this one. The New Jersey second line with Bratt and Palat there hasn't been as good defensively, but still pretty good. And that's the matchup that Malkin line is running into. If anything, I would rather play the Malkin line, because the Penguins power play was better in March than it had been in January and February, but still not great. Like the Detroit power play that we just talked about was better. And the New Jersey penalty kill, typically very good. New Jersey also doesn't take a lot of penalties. Like, that line has to get there pretty much entirely at 5-on-5. And that's why I think I prefer Pittsburgh 2 over Pittsburgh 1. They're cheaper. I think it's a better 5-on-5 matchup. And you still get 2 guys on the top power play unit if the power play does do something. So where there's no ownership coming on Pitt 2, I think I would rather play Pittsburgh 2 than Pittsburgh 1 here tonight. On the New Jersey side, like, there's really 3 lines in play here. For me, I would probably go to the Hischer, Mercer, Tatar line, just because they do have a bigger sample of playing well together. Like, I'm still not sold on Andre Palat. His WAR is down 50% from his 3-year average in Tampa Bay. Like, his wins above replacement per 60 minutes is down 50%. he's just not having a really good season. I wonder if Myers just not going to find his way back to the second line by the middle of the second period. You know what I mean? I think both top two New Jersey lines are fine. I prefer the Hischier Mercer Tatar line. If you want to go to the Hughes line, because Hughes and Brad are on the top power play unit, it's not a bad power play matchup for them either. But I just think I prefer the longer sample, the bigger sample of Hischier, Mercer, and Tatar just playing so well together. They're another one of those like Detroit 1-esque mid-price lines that I like here tonight.
Yeah, I'm in concur. I concur. Yeah, I concur with you on Pitt 2. It's just like, I don't know. Every time I discount Jason Zucker, he buries me. Like I've come around on Zucker. That line with Raquel is very good. So yeah, Pitt 2 would be my preferred option there. As we mentioned at the top of the show, we are sponsored by Bet365, and we have a great deal for you. Bet $1 and get $200 in bonus bets at Bet365. All you got to do is click the link in the description below. It will take you to wherever you need to go. You bet $1, you get $200 in free bonus bets. It's available in New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, and Virginia. They are expanding to more states as the year goes on, so make sure to check that out. Deposit is required. Bonus bet winnings are added to bonus bet balance. Bonus bet wager excluded from returns. Terms and conditions apply. And if you or someone else you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's move on to the next one here. Columbus Blue Jackets with a 2.5 total heading into Toronto. The Leafs have a 4.4 total. That's kind of bonkers. But it is Jet Greaves. That's a great name for a goalie, by the way. He should have been in the Mighty Ducks. Jet Greaves and Joseph Woll are confirmed. Jet Greaves, 6,800 on DraftKings. Joseph Woll, min price. Leafs doing some weird things in practice with their lines tonight. I just think they're just trying stuff out. It's Calle Jarnkrok, Michael Bunting, Austin Matthews, and then Willie Nylander and Mitch Marner with John Tavares. That is quite the top six there. Both of them are getting heavy ownership. They're both coming in around the same ownership, 20%, which is crazy. The Matthews line is way less expensive, but they have a much lower top 2 percentage, so they're way more negative leverage. I just don't think these lines are going to stick throughout the game. So I guess you power play stack here. The second line is fully correlated on the top power play, so I think full stacking them is fine because they're all going to be on the power play. It's just a concern that I don't think Bunting makes it through the game. They really like Matthews and Jarnkrok. I think Marner moves back up there at some point. Keefe is just trying to, mix and match, see what he has. But I just imagine, even if it's like a close-ish game going into the third, you're not going to see Bunting on that top line.
No, I think you're going to see just a lot of movement through this game. Like, there's no reason for them to stick with lines really against Columbus. Like, I was looking at Columbus's recent stretch. They've allowed at least 6 goals in 6 of their last 10 games. It's like, I'm trying to find reasons to say don't play Toronto here tonight. I'm starting to come up a little empty. Obviously, the top line with Austin Matthews is not an ideal combination. I was looking at the numbers for Matthews and Jarnkrok when they have any winger but Nylander or Marner on their wing, and the numbers are not good. Exactly even by shot attempts for and against, 2.5 expected goals for per 60 minutes, which is basically league average. The problem is Matthews been shooting a lot lately. 45 shots in his last 10 games. If you discount the game where he had 15 shots against Carolina, because otherwise he's at 60 shots in his last 11 games. Fading that feels kind of tough. And then you have the second line of Nylander, Tavares, and Marner. Like, I wonder if, by the third period, if Nylander's not on the third line and, they move up like a Zach Aston Reese or something like that to try to balance things out a little bit more. Like, I don't think Nylander, Marner, Tavares play the whole game together. Problem is that they're probably going to be like, they're all going to be on the power play together, right? And Columbus's penalty kill has just fallen apart over the last 6 weeks, which, like, you got to kind of give them a break. Like every single defenseman they have is either traded or injured, so you can't really like hang too much on them. But it is a pretty good power play spot for Toronto in that sense. So I think, like, if you don't want to stack a line because you're worried about them getting broken up, and I am worried about them getting broken up, I think just focusing on the big four, the power play guys, is the way to go. Ice time, I think, is certainly a concern here, but it's also one of those, like, you know, if Marner only plays 18 minutes, it's probably because they're up 5-0 after the second period or something like that. I would focus on the 4 power play guys here. It would be Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Nylander. I would be pretty hard pressed to make a Toronto stack here tonight and not have Matthews on it. I think there are times where that's certainly viable. I don't think I would do it against arguably the worst defensive team in the Eastern Conference. So I would probably be power play stacking Toronto here. There's nothing of interest for me on the Columbus side. Should note Jack Roslovic back on the second line, so at least Kent Johnson has something to play with. But there's no interest for me on the Columbus side.
Kent Johnson, baby. I have a Kent Johnson problem. But yeah, I agree. I don't have any interest in Columbus tonight, other than Kent Johnson. No Kent Johnson tonight. Vegas Golden Knights with a 3.2 total. Heading into Nashville, the Predators have a 2.8 total. Jonathan Quick confirmed Kevin Lankinen is probable. Vegas going with Eichel, Marchessault, Barbashev, Pavel Dorofeyev, William Karlsson, Riley Smith. Vegas played last night they're in Minnesota. Now they're traveling to Nashville. I don't think that's a really long flight, but Nashville is pretty bad. Evangelista, Novak, Sherwood, Tomasino, Glass, Igor Afanaseyev. Not too much ownership on this game. The 2 of the highest owned lines are coming in under 4%. Those are the Eichel line and the Evangelista line. That makes sense to me. I do like that Eichel line here tonight. They're fully correlated again, finally, on the top power play unit. Nashville's penalty kill, not very good. Nashville side, also, like, their best players right now are Novak and Evangelista. They are a bit expensive, though. The problem is, like, Vegas just doesn't take penalties, so they have to get there 5-on-5. So I think I much prefer the Vegas side here.
Yeah, especially where Saros started last night, so you got to assume it's going to be Kevin Lankinen tonight, right? Like, anytime you can play Nashville with this lineup, with Saros not starting, I think we should definitely be paying attention. Not to say Lankinen's bad. Like, Lankinen's actually had a good season. He's just not UC Saros. Like, UC Saros could finish top 3 for the Vezina this season. Like, that's the kind of year that he's had. I'm going to start on the Nashville side real quick. Like, a lot of times we talk about fading Nashville when they're at home and they're super chalky. They're coming in a little bit over-owned here, but it's nothing egregious. Like 4% on the Evangelista line, like you said, 1% on the Tomasino line. A little bit over-owned, but not terrible. And the Vegas top line over the last 3 weeks, 3.4 expected goals against. The Vegas second line, the Karlsson, Dorofeyev, Smith line, 3.2 expected goals against. It has been good goaltending from Vegas that has kind of saved this team. Somebody brought it up in Discord earlier today about how Vegas had been looking pretty bad defensively, and the reason that they're still winning games is their PDO, which is shooting percentage plus save percentage, is top 3 over the last 6 weeks. If you're top 3 by shooting and save percentages, you're going to win some hockey games. That, like, almost no matter what your shot generation and shots against look like. But they are allowing quite a bit, and all it takes is just one off game from the goaltender, and Nashville scores 5 or 6 or something like that. You know what I mean? So I don't actually mind the Novak line here. If you want to go to Glass, Tomasino, Afanseyev, I think you can do that. But they seem to be kind of, I don't want to say down on Cody Glass, but
his usage has been kind of yo-yoed over the last 3 months, I guess. Whereas at least lately, the Novak Evangelista line has been kind of consistent in their usage. So where they're at 2.5 expected goals for, at least that's league average. You get Novak and Evangelista on the top power play unit. I think that's where I would go for Nashville. Like, I think they're a fine, cheap line. Like, Vegas doesn't really scare me from a defensive perspective. Like, not with the way that they've been playing, especially since Mark Stone got hurt. So, don't mind that Novak line here. But I'm with you. I'm more interested on the Vegas side. It's the Vegas top line. 3.2 expected goals for over the last 3 weeks, 4 actual goals while shooting under 12%. So, like, they're not riding it super hot shooting percentage or anything like that. Like 11.8% is a little high, but it's not extreme or anything. What, like you said, they're all in the top power play unit. Now the power play is bad.
Bad, yeah, you can just it's bad.
I hate saying it, but yeah, it's bad. But the Nashville penalty kill, also bad. What's been saving Nashville is the goaltending, namely UC Saros. And without Saros in net, they're asking a lot of Kevin Lankinen. So I don't even think, like, it's every matchup is a bad power play matchup for Vegas because they just don't draw a lot of power plays. But I think this is one of the better power play spots that they could possibly get. So I'm with you. I like Vegas won most in this game, but I don't mind the Tommy Novak line from Nashville side either.
Yeah, it's an interesting game since both teams are on a back-to-back here, but got to keep everything in mind this type of season, or this time of year. If it was 11-game slate in like October and both these teams are on a back-to-back, you kind of poo-poo it but these are, especially on the Nashville side, these are younger kids who have something to prove. So like back-to-back, not a huge deal here. Philadelphia Flyers with a 3.1 total. Heading into St. Louis, the Blues have a 3.4 total. Min price, Sam Urson confirmed for Flyers. Jordan Binnington confirmed for the Blues. I don't know what to say about Binnington anymore. He's a legit psycho. Rob Thomas is a game-time decision here. If he does play, no idea where he's slotting in. Literally no clue, because we were talking a little bit before the show. Like, you would assume he's going to slot in with Vrana and Kapanen, but Craig Berube just loves Jake Neighbors for some reason. So who knows where he's going to be? Like, we just don't know. We can assume he's going to take Jake Neighbors' spot, and it would be Vrana, Kapanen, and Thomas, but, we just don't know.
I bet if Thomas plays, it's Vrana that goes down to the third line to play with, like, Sammy Blais and Logan Brown or something like that. Or
that, yeah. I generally agree with that sentiment. It's just like, it's a mess. As it is, like, with that in mind, I think I want to play the Shen Kyrou line a bit more. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're both on the top power play unit. Saad won't kill you there. Like, I'm not super enthusiastic about playing the Blues, but like, they have a 3.4 total. They're getting some ownership. This is a great matchup. Urson has not been good at all this year, so I don't know. Like, I don't want to play the Blues, but I feel like you have to consider them.
So I'm on the Philly side here. That's St. Louis. Yeah, I know. Okay. I'm going to have to explain myself here. That Shen Saad Kyrou line doesn't have a big sample. They're only up to 65 minutes, which is like 5-6 games worth of ice time. It's not a lot. But Kyrou and Shen have generally struggled defensively a lot this year when they played together. Generally speaking, their defensive numbers are pretty bad. And in the small sample of Kyrou, Shen with Brandon Saad there, 3.3 expected goals against per 60 minutes, which is about 30% worse than league average. 3.6 actual goals against, which is about 40% worse than league average. They're giving up 78 shot attempts against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. That's basically a good penalty kill. That's the way the St. Louis top line is playing defensively. When they're on the ice, they're basically a good penalty kill. And if you're a good penalty kill at 5-on-5, that means you suck defensively. And Philly doesn't have 100% confirmed lines because I think they were 11-7 at morning skate today, and they didn't officially run lines, but they had guys in different colored jerseys. Anyway, Tippett, Frost, and Travis Konechny look like they're going to be a line. It's not confirmed, but they look like they're going to be a line. Tippett, Frost, and Konechny are expensive. They're $17,800. That's not like super expensive, but it is expensive for a Philadelphia line. They're not coming in with any ownership, 2 to 3%. Their top two stack percentage is 5 to 6%, which means they have positive leverage. This Philly line has a higher top two stack probability than the Ottawa top line that we talked about earlier this slate, and about the same top two stack probability as the Hughes Bratt line from New Jersey that we just talked about a couple games ago. So, yeah, I'm more on the Flyer side here. I'm on the Tippett, Konechny, Frost line. Going into that Shen matchup is a great matchup for that Philly top line. I think you might only get Tippett on the top power play unit. You might get Tippett and Konechny. I think Tippett and Konechny were both on the top power play in the last game. So at least you might get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit together for whatever that's worth. But at least Travis Konechny is back and can help out. I don't know. It's the St. Louis penalty kill is pretty bad, as is the Flyers. But I think it's a much better matchup from the Philly side than it is from the St. Louis side. You're going to get them at probably half the ownership. $2,000 more expensive, granted, but you're probably going to get them at half the ownership. Honestly, I think it's the Philly top line of Konechny, Tippett, and Frost that I like best in this game, and by a fair margin as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Bennington's trash. Blues are bad defensively. I think you got to consider both sides, honestly. Like, I kind of was focused more on the Blues side, but now I'm going to, after the show, I'll go take a deeper look on the Philly side. Like, Konechny being back, if that is a line. Like, even if Thomas goes out against them, like Kapanen or whoever's with them, they're not going to be great defensively.
Yeah, so, I mean, like, I would have interest in, like, Kapanen, Vrana, Thomas, but I don't want to just leave, like, a placeholder lineup there and then maybe have to swap everything out with, half the slate already locked or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just not ideal, especially because Kapanen's a center on DraftKings too.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next one here. These games just keep on coming. Chicago Blackhawks with a 2.1 total heading into Calgary. The Flames have a 3.9 total. Peter Mrazek, Jacob Markstrom is confirmed. Jacob Markstrom should not be 8,500. Like, if he was a 6,500 goalie tonight, I probably still wouldn't even play him. He's been that bad this season. Now, what line has been very good this season? The sample's getting bigger. The numbers are sticking. Elias Lindholm, Tyler Toffoli, Andrew Mangiapane. Lindholm, just kind of a guy there. The really good stuff is with Toffoli and Mangiapane. This is a great matchup. They're a little bit over-owned for my liking. Ice time is not super, but they are fully correlated. 3.9 total. I do really like that Calgary top line. And I will say, Huberdeau, Backlund, and Coleman, Huberdeau has looked alive a little bit. He's looked alive. So I think there's multiple lines here.
Yeah, there is. I think there's at least 2 lines on the Calgary side to play. I'm not going to go in on the Chicago side. I think you and I are both on the same not playing Chicago boat here tonight. If you want to one-off the typical guys that you want to one-off, like a Taylor Radish or something like that, I think that's fine. But I'm not stacking Chicago here going into Calgary. Chicago typically makes hay on the power play, and this is a brutal power play matchup for them. So I'm out on stacking the Blackhawks. On the Calgary side, I agree with you with the Toffoli, Lindholm, Mangiapane. Like, I know they're coming in a bit over-owned. 8% top 2 stack probability, 12% ownership. That is negative leverage. At the same time, it's an 11-game slate, right? Like, there are lots of ways to get different, even if one of your lines is over-owned. What I will say is that Chicago's not necessarily been terrible defensively. I think, they're certainly not a good defensive team. but I was looking basically since the trade deadline, their defensive numbers are better than Nashville's and basically in line with Vegas. Like,
Nashville, not a very good team though. Vegas is kind of bad. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, the
You know what I
beginning of the
mean?
season, Chicago was just awful. Like,
right, like they're
atrocious.
not an Anaheim or a Columbus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of the point that I'm trying to get across here, is that they're not like that very bottom of the barrel Anaheim, Columbus. I think you can even put San Jose in there at this point. They're not that. They've still lost a lot of games because they're not very good. Half that lineup should probably be in the AHL, but they are playing together as a team. You have to give them credit for that. So I'm not super excited about playing Calgary. I will say I would play the Toffoli, Lindholm, Mangiapane line for two reasons. One, they are perfectly correlated, as you said, on the top power play unit. The other is they're just generating more. 4 expected goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5 over the last 4 weeks. 5.5 actual goals. Their expected goals for numbers are about 30% higher than the second line. So just all things being equal, I would rather play the Toffoli, Lindholm, Mangiapane line. They've just been playing better. You know what I mean? So I think both top 2 Calgary lines are perfectly fine. It is just the first line for it being perfectly correlated and for playing better offensively. I just think that they're the better line. There's negative leverage on both lines, so it's kind of pick your poison. I'd just rather pick the one that has been playing better offensively.
Yeah, I agree. Still kind of with all things in mind, like ownership and matchup and all that stuff, similar price, I think I still prefer Detroit 1.
Yeah.
Take that for what you will. Touting the Red Wings in April. Get access to all of our MLB content, projections, ownership, top stacks tools, top pitchers tools, top data tools, the lineup generator, Discord, and much more. You can get it for just $9 for your first 9 days. Click the link in the description below. It will automatically populate the codes you need. If you can't figure that out, go to the site, use promo code PLAYBALL, and you can get everything for $9 for your first 9 days. So check that out. I really, really do like the MLB tools. I've been playing way heavier than I should in MLB to start the season, considering it is the end of NHL season, and I'm still not accustomed to the MLB players yet. It takes me a while. But the tools on the site have helped me a lot. So $9 for your first 9 days. Click the link in the description below. Use promo code PLAYBALL. Seattle, 3.3 total. Heading into Vancouver, the Canucks have a 3.3 total as well. Seattle played last night. They absolutely mopped the floor with the Coyotes, 8-1. Philip Grubauer's in net last night. So it's Party Marty Jones in net for Seattle. Colin Delia confirmed for the Canucks. What a festival this is going to be. Pettersson, Kuzmenko still with Dakota Joshua, Philip DiGiuseppe with JT Miller and Brock Besser, Anthony Beauvillier down on the third line. Looks like Vitaly Kravtsov is going to be a healthy scratch. Not that that is DFS relevant. Seattle going with McCann, the same crew. Not too much ownership here on Seattle. Like, there's none. I don't know, man. I feel like Seattle's an interesting filler here. I know they played last night, but they put up 8 goals. It's not like Vancouver is much better defensively than Arizona. Like, Arizona's top line is a good line, just like Vancouver 1 is a good line. But after that, it gets really dicey. So I kind of like Seattle here tonight. You want to play that Vancouver top line, the Pettersson, Kuzmenko, Dakota Joshua line? Like, yeah, they're all right, but they're kind of, Pettersson's really expensive. I don't know. I'm not super thrilled about playing Vancouver, except for the fact that it's back-to-back on the road and Marty Jones is in that, which is the problem.
So what if I told you that since the trade deadline, which was 31 days ago, 32 days ago, the Vancouver Canucks and the Boston Bruins have the exact same expected goals against, Mark?
I'm retiring. No, just kidding.
I swear to God, over Vancouver's last 15 games, they're at 2.34 expected goals against. It's the same mark as the Boston Bruins, better than teams like Winnipeg, Tampa, Calgary, and the Islanders. And that's actually translating to goals against. Their goals against per 60 minutes of 5-on-5 is 2.15 over their last 15 games, 6th in the NHL. They've legit. I think it's a combination of a couple things. One, JT Miller has been playing better since Rick Tocchet got there. Like, you have to give him credit for that. The other is they stopped playing Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who was like just catastrophic this year, and putting in just a random AHLer was a big upgrade for them. That's how bad Ekman-Larsson had been. Vancouver's been playing pretty well defensively. They're not giving up much, and it bears out when you look at the numbers. Like Pettersson and Dakota Joshua, 1.5 expected goals against per 60 minutes together when they're playing together this season. Even the Vancouver second line, the Miller-Besser Di Giuseppe line, which should be terrible defensively, over the last 3 weeks is 2.7 expected goals against, which is a little bit worse than league average, but not like abominable or anything like that. 3 months ago, that number might have been 3.7 instead of 2.7. Like, Vancouver has been playing better defensively. Like, you have to give him credit for it. And the penalty kill was a lot better in the month of March as well. If you want to look again, just over their last 15 games, basically the middle of the league by shots against, basically middle of the league by goals against, and middle of the league for that penalty kill, considering where they were in the first 4 months of the year. Pretty amazing. I don't know, man. At the outset of the slate, I was pretty excited to play Seattle, expecting some fairly low ownership. There is low ownership on them. I think Seattle's fine to play because of the low ownership. I'm just not as excited to play them now as I was. If I were to play anything, it would be the McCann, Beniers, Eberle line. At least they're generating by an above average rate, 2.6 expected goals for, 3.8 actual goals over their last 60 minutes, shooting only 10.5%, which is perfectly fine. It's well within range. It is the Beniers line I like best, but I'm not super excited about playing Seattle here. On the Vancouver side, the offensive numbers with Joshua are not that great. The shot attempts per 60 minutes with Joshua next to Pettersson brings Pettersson's shot attempts down about 22%, which is a pretty big drop. The Seattle penalty kill has been better. In fact, it's been good over the last 6 weeks. If anything, I would play the Pettersson line. It's just kind of like my binky. It's my favorite that I always go back to. But I think this is another game where at the outset of the day, I had a lot of interest in stacking both sides. And honestly, now, after researching it, I don't have interest in stacking either side.
What happened?
Josh, you there, bud?
Am I here? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I must have cut off the end of your sentence. I thought you were still talking. I'm just looking off into space. So good times. Good times had by all here. Yeah, here I am. Sorry. Blacked out. But yeah, no. It is kind of crazy that Boston Vancouver stat. So yeah, I was kind of excited about playing some Seattle. I guess I have to reconsider that. I will.
What I will say is that it's Colin Delia in net and not Thatcher Demko. That does make a difference. The Demko had been playing pretty well. I like Delia, but he's not Demko, so that does make a difference.
Yeah. All things considered, we will reconsider the considering. Edmonton Oilers with a 3.5 total. Heading into Los Angeles, the Kings have a 3 total. Stuart Skinner, probable. Phoenix Copley is confirmed. Fiala and Gabe Velarde are out tonight, so the third line is going to be Iafallo, Blake Lizotte, Arthur Kaliev. Literally no ownership here on Edmonton tonight. It scares the absolute daylights out of me now. LA top 6 defensively are just absolute meat grinders. The problem is the LA penalty kill is not great, and the Oilers feast on the power play. So, like, I'm kind of in a conundrum here because this is an awful 5-on-5 matchup. But this is a very good power play matchup. And Connor McDavid's coming in at 1% right now. He is 10,300, which is really, really expensive. But man, this is a very good power play spot.
Yeah, McDavid 0.8% ownership. It's an 11-game slate, man. So there is no ownership on Edmonton. The top line is super expensive. Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, and McDavid. It's approaching 25,000 on DraftKings. They are generating a lot. 3.8 expected goals for over their last 75 minutes. 3.8 expected per 60 minutes. What I will say is that Hyman's not been shooting a lot lately, even though he's been on the top line with McDavid. Only 26 shots over his last 10 games. Now he has 5 goals in his last 10 games, so he's still scoring. But where Hyman was so valuable early in the season was that he would score a goal on 7 shots, and you would get that shot bonus from DraftKings. Hasn't really been the case lately. I don't think it matters too much which line goes out against McDavid. What I will say is that the Kings' second line with Trevor Moore there, since Trevor Moore came back from injury, they haven't been their normal defensive selves. They typically are really good defensively, but over the last 3 weeks, 3.0 expected goals against per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. That's about 20% worse than the league average. There are reasons to play that Edmonton top line here tonight. Absurdly low ownership. I don't think the matchup going up against Danault and Moore might be as bad as it otherwise has been. It's not a bad power play matchup for them. I might be figuring out a way to try to get some of those Edmonton power play guys in a lineup here tonight. I think this might be a spot. McDavid is matchup proof. Like, let's just get that out of the way. This might be a spot where I would go in place, especially with Mikey Anderson out. Like, Mikey Anderson out for Los Angeles on the blue line.
He's by far the best defensive defenseman.
Takes away their best defensive defenseman. Gavrikov and Doughty. Gavrikov might be able to fill that role, maybe, but we'll have to see. I really do like the Edmonton top line, the Edmonton power play guys here tonight. Now, if you want to take out a super expensive guy to throw in a cheap Yamamoto or something like that, I think you can do that. But I do like the Edmonton side here. Quite honestly, I'm not playing the Kings side. I think the Kopitar Kempe line is fine. I would probably play them, especially when you get Kopitar and Kempe on the top power play unit that has Arvidsson there now. But the second line with Trevor Moore there, like, they have a big shooting percentage problem going back to last year, and you have to be able to finish your chances. For me, it'd be Kings 1, if anything, but it's the Edmonton power play guys I like most in this game.
Yeah, I do too. I think, like, the Kings are all right. The thing is, like, I don't know, man. Like, they feel like they've kind of been power play reliant too. I know Edmonton's goalies have been up and down, but Edmonton's not. They haven't been awful defensively, so I don't know. I think I'm in the same boat here. I much prefer the Edmonton side. Anytime you can get McDavid that well owned, it's just horrifying. So,
I mean, yeah. We'll get to Colorado. I mean, actually, let's just get to that Colorado game right now, because I think it makes for an interesting discussion I want to bring up real quick.
Yeah, Colorado Avalanche with a 3.8 total heading into San Jose. The Sharks have a 2.6 total. Alexander Georgiev is probable. Capo Kakkonen is confirmed. Looks like Thomas Bordeleau is finally in the player pool. Daniil Gushkin also in the player pool. Looks like the Avalanche going with the top line of McKinnon, Renton, and Nishushkin. Yeah. Arturi Lehkonen has been practicing. I don't think he's going to be playing.
No.
I do like that.
He's not.
Yeah. So I do like Colorado top line here. They're just coming in, double digits. I feel like I know what your discussion is going to be here, so I'll just kick it to you and let you talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm pretty sure Evan Rodriguez is on the top line. Like, they didn't have a formal morning skate today, and Rodriguez was on the top line the entire last game, and they beat Dallas.
Yeah,
so
that's why. That's what the lineup builder has, but Top Stacks has Nichushkin up there. I don't know why.
Yeah, and I don't know why either, because Rodriguez was on the top line the entire game. I think he took one shift off or something like that. So it does look like it's Evan Rodriguez on the top line. Yeah, what I want to bring up is just the pricing, right? Because obviously McKinnon and Rantanen are pretty expensive. Just the two of them is 17,400. But with Evan Rodriguez there, it saves some money. So that line, I think, comes in right at 22,000 or just under it. So it's basically Colorado 1, Buffalo 1, Edmonton power play. All three lines on the road. I think all three lines in decent to good, pretty good matchups, and all three lines coming in with almost no ownership. I think for me, it comes down to picking between Buffalo, Edmonton, Colorado here tonight. If you're going with a super expensive stack, those would be one of the three that I would look for. I wouldn't be going, to Pittsburgh or to Florida or to Ottawa or something like that. It would be Colorado, Edmonton, Buffalo. It's just, which one do you want to use? Now, there's no matchup concern here. There's too many injuries on the San Jose side to say that there's any matchup concern. And the Colorado top line with Rodriguez there, they're up to almost 150 minutes together, 4.4 expected goals per 60 minutes, 5 actual goals, only shooting 10.7%. I love that Colorado top line here tonight. Like, for me, they're right up there neck and neck with Buffalo. Like, I'm going to have a decision to make in my one lineup. I really do like Colorado 1. No Colorado 2 for me. New hook, new sucks, more like. I just have no interest in that line at all. The San Jose side, I think Peterson and Hurdle would be the direction I would go. 2 out of the 3 on the top power play unit. You probably avoid the Colorado top line as they use Couture in a shutdown matchup. So I think Hurdle and Peterson makes like a decent 2-man or something like that. But I think this game is about Colorado 1.
Yeah. If you want a little bit more ownership, you play Colorado. If you want to get spicy with low on McDavid. Like, I know McDavid's projected at 0.8. It would be shocking if he doesn't come in around like actually like 8 to 10%, but like his line mates going to be way lower owned. You know, McKinnon and Rantanen are going to be owned tonight. So, yeah, when I first looked at this slate, I circled Colorado immediately. And to your point about, Hurdle and Peterson, Peterson's 2,800. He's been playing 20 minutes a night on the top power play, avoiding McKinnon, Rantanen going into a new hook confer line. I haven't been playing much cash this season, but Jacob Peterson, 2,800 for that. Probably play Peterson in cash.
Yep.
That is the 11 gamer. We have to talk about those gremlins that live behind the blue line. I wish it was like lacrosse and they had to stay in their zone. It'd make life a lot easier. But here we are. There's some interesting, like we've talked about, like, Colorado 1 spending up with Makar makes it very difficult. I've been spending down at defenseman recently. Who you liking here?
Yeah, Makar, Matheson, and Dahlin are the 3 expensive defensemen that I'm looking at here tonight. I think Matheson, now that he's at 6K, might scare a lot of people off, but he's still playing super heavy minutes, and he's really involved in the offense. So don't mind those guys for expensive. Mackenzie Weegar really sticks out in the mid-price range. More ice time. He's been shooting more lately. Obviously, he's been getting regular power play minutes. Like, Weegar and Morgan Riley are 2 like heavy targets in that mid range. I suspect they'll also be fairly highly owned. Aaron Ekblad, since he got moved back to the power play, has been shooting more mercifully. So, if you want to save some money from Montour, I think you can go in that direction. Shane Gostisbehere, I think he makes a lot of sense at home for Carolina here tonight. Certainly more at Cedar for Detroit. And Evan Bouchard, still only 4,200 for Edmonton. He's one of those guys you can put it in an Edmonton power play stack and take out one of the expensive wingers, right? Like, don't play 7K, Zach Hyman. Go play 4,200 Bouchard instead. So I don't mind him. Torrey Krug as well for St. Louis if you're playing the Blues tonight. But who's playing the Blues? It's too bad Adam Bockfist is back for Columbus because Gavin Bayreuther was like 2,800 running power play 1 for the Blue Jackets. I still don't mind Bayreuther tonight, but he does get knocked down a peg now that Bockfist is back. Certainly Eric Brandstrom for Ottawa. He's probably going to have to play heavy minutes with Chychrun and Shabbat still out. Mario Ferraro, another cheap guy from San Jose. He might have to block a lot of shots here tonight against Colorado. If you want to pay up a little bit more expensive, certainly Jan Cork from the Flyers, Vladislav Gavrikov from Los Angeles with Mikey Anderson out. Certainly like him here tonight. And Ryan Graves from New Jersey. Him and Hamilton are the only Devils defensemen playing over 20 minutes a game. So don't mind Graves either.
Yeah. Lots of defenseman choices tonight. There are a plethora of goalies under 7K tonight on DraftKings. I feel like Joseph Woll is the obvious chalk at min price, but who else you like in here?
Yeah, like if you're really worried, like if you just want to make sure you can maybe lock in 10 or 12 points or something like that, just put in Woll and just forget about it from Toronto. But I really do like Devin Levi here tonight. I could see, like I said, I haven't made lineups yet. It's probably, if I'm playing an expensive line, Buffalo is one of them. I could see myself doing a Buffalo 1 plus Levi or something like that, right? Especially where they're facing Florida, and you could see a ton of shots here. So I think amongst the 6,500 goalies, Levi is my favorite for GPPs. Other guys I don't mind. Don't mind Lankinen at home against Vegas here tonight. Certainly the Ottawa goalie, Marilainen, on the road against Carolina. He's more expensive, but he's still only 6,900, and it's still the Carolina Hurricanes without their 2 best goal scorers. So I don't mind Marilainen as well. I don't know why you would pay over $7,000 for a goalie here tonight on DraftKings. I really don't. Not in GPPs, certainly.
Yeah. I do like Levi as a GPP play. The obvious cash play is Woll. If you're playing cash tonight, the first person you should put into your lineup is Joseph Woll. But in GPPs, I think I agree with you, Devin Levi. I watched his debut. It was against the Rangers. He looked very, very good. Rangers are a good offensive team. So are Florida. Florida, ton of shots. Wouldn't surprise me, even in a loss, for Levi to pay off at his salary with a saves bonus. So I agree with you there. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
We're going to Les Flammes, and we're going to Andrew Mangiapane.
That was actually mine. We're on the same page, so I'm going to go to my Derek Zoolander, Dominic Kubalik.
All right. Interesting. Detroit, let's go, baby. Maybe they can do it again.
Yeah, we have 4 shows left on the season. We'll be back on Thursday. Make sure to click those links in the description. If you haven't smashed that like button, do it on the way out. Thank you very much for tuning in. We love all of you. Good luck, everybody, and we will see you on Thursday.
Good luck, everyone.
Pissy on me.